Okay, so welcome to Relevant Founders, brought to you by Relevant Software. Relevant is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers world-class standard products for Fortune 500 companies and promising startups. Today, we have Stephen, CEO and founder of Z4 and Chief Strategy Officer at Delvify. Z4 is a startup aimed at helping to transform businesses' commercial performance. One company that he's currently working on is Delvify, a startup that is on a mission to build a better and more durable ecosystem to deliver the next level results. Mm-hmm. Stephen has a proven set of sales and marketing tools and techniques that he uses to deliver the results. Quoting one quote off of your website, Stephen, "This isn't the theory that I've read in a book, but it's a battle-tested set of tools I use myself." Very nice. I really like this. Okay, Stephen, really great to see you. Really great to meet with you this morning. I know it's early your side. We've got a lot to get through, so let's get straight to it. So what I'd like to do first of all is just introduce yourself for our listeners, please. Tell us a little bit about who is Stephen.
Brilliant. Yeah. Hi, Matt. So yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I'm really delighted to be here, obviously. But yeah, I'll describe myself as a global citizen, really, and recognised digital marketing leader with over 20 years professional experience in sales and marketing. I've previously worked for Virgin Money and Virgin Mobile for about 7 years, so a huge amount of experience there, and obviously had a great time there as well. And I was also Group CEO at a company called Optimised Media, who are a global performance marketing network. So basically, I'd say I've got a proven track record, really, of delivering international growth and value across European, Asian Pacific, and also Latin American markets as well. But for companies like Delvify, really, I'm really working quite closely with the founder and the senior management team to develop and execute this growth accelerator model. So really helping them design and execute the optimum kind of sales and marketing tools and techniques to really help them go to market, accelerate to profit, and ultimately onto a successful exit and financial outcome, really.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. Yeah. So you're using all of your past experiences, all of your wealth of experiences to better place other people in the market, really. Tell us a little bit. Let's start with Z4. Tell us a little bit about what is Z4.
Yeah, so basically I set Zone4 up nearly 12 months ago, actually, because I knew Charles Allard, who's the founder of Delvify. I've known him for a long time, really, and he wanted some help with the company and going to market and all those sorts of things. So following those conversations, really, I thought there's an opportunity here, really, for me to kind of use my experience over kind of 20 years at an international level as well, to really kind of design some tools and techniques, the thing around being battle tested and stuff that I've done before. So ultimately, kind of working with Charles and Delvify, excuse me, helping them in three kind of main areas, really. So the first one was really working with Charles and the senior management team to really design and then execute their go-to-market strategy. So really helping them get that kind of product market fit, getting them to a position where they're getting some decent level of monthly recurring revenues, and then building on from that, working with Charles, the founder, to really start to look at Series A funding, to then help the company kind of scale and grow, but then get to that position where they can kind of exit, sell the company, and achieve that successful outcome, really. So a lot of work going into setting up Zone4 so I can really help on that growth accelerator model, but being really, really focused really on the go-to-market, the sales, the marketing, and the customer value management plans, really, but very much designed to help them scale, help them achieve funding, and then help them ultimately sell the company.
What has been so far, obviously, with your experience, what has been maybe the role or the lesson of your past which has helped you the most in doing what you're doing at Delphi? Right?
Yeah, it's a good question, actually. I'd probably say my time at Virgin, really. Richard Branson was an amazing kind of mentor and leader, but the one thing I always took from Virgin was they always encourage you to put yourself in the customer's shoes. So think about your potential customers. Think about, well, what problems do they have? How could you solve them? What edge can you create? But ultimately, how can you make their lives better? Because I think from Virgin's experience that once you have loyal paying customers, it's easier then to kind of scale and grow your business. So I think that's my one key takeout, really, just always putting yourself in the customer's shoes, and whatever it is, whether it's your marketing, whether it's your website copy or sales materials, but always thinking about your customer. Where are they? What pain points have they got? If you talk about features, people don't think technical features. They think about, well, it solves my problems in these ways. So that would be my key takeout, really. Always put yourself in the customer's shoes and think about the world from their perspective.
When you're doing something, you're doing something for others. Yeah, you need to make sure that what you're doing is helping, and it's pretty simple for people to use as well. It's too complicated.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Delvify is a great example because one of the products is visual search and visual recommendations. So it's AI powered, it's got deep tech, it's got AI, it's got machine learning, natural language processing. So it's quite technical. But a lot of, an end consumer, so if it's someone head of e-commerce with a fashion and apparel website, they don't really get that. What they get is, my site search is poor. Consumers can't find the products that they're looking for. I'm losing sales and I'm losing customers. Therefore, this product, it helps customers find products 5 times faster. And then ultimately it will increase my conversion, my average order value, and my overall sales revenues. So it's thinking about things in that context. People don't buy AI and machine learning. They buy solutions to problems that they have.
It's one of these things we don't realize how much until you think about it, until you work, and you don't realize how much work goes behind the project, the system, basically, do you? So tell us about your growth accelerator model.
Yeah, so basically, I think, as I said, as you quite rightly pointed out at the beginning, it's this kind of battle-tested tools and techniques, really. So I've had a kind of a 20-odd year career in sales and marketing. So, I think marketing can be very, very complex. People love producing huge plans, huge strategies, spending loads of money. But ultimately, I kind of developed the growth accelerator model just to focus on 3 core areas. So the first thing is always, how do you go to market? So the purpose there is really to sit down and spend a lot of time actually defining who your ideal customer profile is. So who are you selling to? Where are they? What do they look like? What role do they have? What sort of company, industry? But thinking about what problems have they got? How can you solve them? And then really by doing that, it helps you frame and start to shape, your target markets, your core messages, and then the media that you can use to actually reach those customers. But ultimately, I think, the purpose of marketing really is to make sure that your target market gets to know you and can express an interest in your product. And then from there, the next stage really that builds on that is trying to get to revenue and break even using kind of proven sales techniques. So, marketing's role is to effectively create awareness, drive leads. But then you want to create that optimum kind of sales process where you can kind of capture, nurture leads and then convert them into paying customers. So really the goal there is to get prospects to like you and buy from you for the first time. But I think through that sales process, one of the good techniques, especially within B2B, is using kind of consultative advisory selling. So not hard selling, but just sharing relevant, interesting, useful information. Because someone might be interested in your product, they may not understand it, they may not be ready to buy from you for 6 or 12 months, but it's just continuing drip feeding content to them that adds value that they find interesting, and then you capture them at the right time when they're ready to kind of talk to you and potentially buy from you. And then the third phase is what I've called customer value management. So once you've got live paying customers, you really want to kind of grow the value, retain them, upselling them. But that's the work there starts to look at your kind of pricing strategy. How do you kind of add additional value, charge more for it, but the customer's happy because they're getting more? And also, thinking about how do you orchestrate referrals, being proactive to get customers to recommend you and leveraging those relationships. So ultimately, this kind of phase is to get customers to trust you, buy from you again, and recommend you to other relevant prospects as well, really.
Out of those kind of 3 stages, what would you say is the most difficult stage to implement? Is it the kind of trying to find the right market, or is it the retaining? What would you say?
Yeah, it's a really good question, actually. I'd always say probably the first stage, focusing on your ideal customer profile. Especially if you're a startup, you may not have the luxury of, lots of budget, for example, and lots of resource.
Yep.
So by defining your ideal customer profile, you can just be very specific. So pick one segment, one niche, and just own that particular niche. Don't be too broad, focus on one particular area. So with Delvify, for example, it could be, fashion and apparel within Asia, or just, Singapore and Hong Kong, for example, but just own that particular niche. Be successful there, fine tune, get to that kind of sweet spot, then you can start to build out from there. But it is really important, because I think once you understand your ideal customer profile and that particular niche, it helps frame, what activity you should do, what are your core messages, what media you should use. Because it's really easy to kind of be super busy, do lots of stuff and think, oh, I've got to be on TikTok because everyone else is. But if your ideal customer doesn't use TikTok, why bother? Just pick one or two channels and execute them really, really well, and then build out from there, really.
Absolutely. You're wasting time otherwise, wasting time, resources, energy on these things that actually isn't going to be beneficial, profitable to you at all. So, okay, what would you say is like the number one mistake most startups, most tech companies do at the beginning of their journey?
Yeah, I'll probably say there were two, actually, because I think, the first time, I think, as I said earlier, is not spending enough time on that kind of go-to-market and that ideal customer profile. You often have situations where you work with very talented people with great visions, with really exceptional kind of technical skills, but sometimes you're so deep in the weeds, you can't see the wood from the trees. But thinking about, well, what does it mean from a customer's point of view? What benefit, or what problems do they have? What solutions do you have? So I think really spending that time to really understand that, painting a picture of your ideal customer, thinking about, again, as I said, put yourself in their shoes. What problems, pain points do they have? How does your solution make their lives better? What USPs have you got? What is your competitive edge? And that really does drive everything else then. So when you start thinking about website copy, for example, whether it's your, brand and product headers and subheaders, thinking about it in the customer's point of view, what does this product do? What transition happens when I use it? And what are the benefits in my kind of language? So that's the first one. And I think the second point really is probably not understanding that, each of those three phases I mentioned, they are all intrinsically linked. You have to do the first bit, go to market to kind of get awareness, get people kind of buying from you. Then you have to kind of focus on the sales side, kind of nurture, capture leads. Then you have to think about the customer value management to upsell, create more value, and think about those kind of retention metrics. So everything is intrinsically linked. So you can do kind of, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, but just be really, really focused on what you do, really.
So it's that circle, that cycle that you have to go through the whole cycle. You're saying obviously there with obviously really important to know your market. Sometimes it's difficult to see. Sometimes you need to obviously step back and look at it differently. How do you do that? How do you personally do that? For example, say you think, okay, I've got this and it doesn't work out. When do you think, okay, I need to take a different turn. I need to think differently about this? Yeah,
I think that's, again, another good question. But I think it probably boils down to actually knowing what you're doing and why you're doing it and what you're going to measure against. Because not everything will work. You have to be agile. You have to be able to kind of pivot. And it's good to try things, fail fast, learn quickly. But the key in my mind is knowing, very clearly why you're doing something, what you're trying to achieve, and that KPI that you're using to measure it. So it could be something like with Delvify, for example, we're doing a lot of work on LinkedIn at the moment. So phase 1 is really testing what targeting works at an industry, job level, country level. Fine-tuning that, because some activity will just kind of burn budget and achieve nothing, but ultimately our metrics are around awareness, engagement, and driving leads. So yeah, just try things, but measure it and know what you're trying to achieve, and don't be frightened to kind of try different things, and don't try everything at once. So with LinkedIn, that example, phase 1 might be test and refine your targeting. The second phase then may be testing different creative, does video or GIFs or a downloadable guide perform better for you.
So not being afraid to try different things, and also stepping out the box, but also knowing when to stop. Okay, this didn't work, let's go somewhere else.
And I think also what really helps, I think, is thinking about how you like to be sold to as a individual, as a person. And I like LinkedIn, but I do have issues with I accept a request, someone slides into my DM immediately and they're wanting 30 minutes of my time. And I think, well, I don't know you, I've never met you, I don't know if it's worth me giving up my time. Conversely, you could have an approach where someone's sharing useful information to me that is relevant to me. And I think, oh, that's interesting. I'm happy to kind of download this guide and read about it. Then I may follow up. Or if someone contacts me, I think, yeah, you've given me some value. I found it interesting. Yeah, I'm happy to now kind of talk to you and engage with you, really.
That's actually a really interesting point about LinkedIn and the DMs there. So how do you, obviously, maybe get hundreds of messages, hundreds of DMs of people wanting to get in contact with you. How do you decide which one is the most valuable when you haven't really got the time to go through all of the list of information?
Yeah, if I'm honest, I ignore most of them. If it's someone that I don't know, that I've never met before, I tend to ignore it. I always read them, but I reply to very few. If it's someone that I know that I've met or someone that's connected to someone that I know, then I'm likely to be more interested. But conversely, what I do, I really engage with content. So if I'm flicking through my LinkedIn feed, if I find things that are interesting, articles, blogs, guides, then I tend to engage on that level, really. But I'm not a massive fan of spamming people's inboxes, to be honest.
So it's more of the people doing, when people are putting the products out there, putting the kind of promotion out there where you can see and connect with it, rather than just hey, sales letter.
Yeah, it's that kind of consultative advisory selling, I think, where it's providing thought leadership. So someone that's put the effort into creating an interesting blog article about the industry, about the problems and solutions, or if it's a downloadable guide, it's that type of stuff that I'll engage with and read and actually have more interest and willingness to engage with that particular company or individual, really,
rather than like a sales template in email. Here we go, off you go. Yeah, definitely. Okay, very interesting. Stephen, what promotion strategies do you recommend for early startups? Is it PPC? Is it SEO, content marketing? What do you recommend?
Yeah, good questions. I think PPC works in the sense of, if someone's interested, they're actively searching for something. So if it's, visual search solutions in terms of Delvify, I think that's useful just to put a small amount of budget on certain keywords so you can just kind of capture that. I wouldn't put a huge amount of budget and effort into it particularly. I think SEO is always a good thing to do, especially with kind of blogs and backlinks. But you need to recognise it does take a lot of time, especially if you're new website, to kind of build that credibility. So the two things that I really focus on, and this is what we're doing at Delvify, really, is first of all is content marketing. It fits in with the growth accelerator model and this kind of consultative advisory selling. So I think, and again, it links back to your ideal customer profile, where you can start to think about the core messages, the media that you can use. But there's this thing that I've developed called a content matrix that looks at all the different types of content, but plots them on that kind of sales funnel. So what do you use, to create awareness, interest, desire, and action, for example, and it kind of frames your content strategy. So initially, you may use attention-grabbing blogs and headlines to drive awareness. But think about what you want that person to do once they've read that blog, subscribe to my newsletter, for example, or my LinkedIn newsletter. So I think content marketing is definitely something I'd always recommend. And you can build out and be more sophisticated over time. So you could get into, a podcast, for example. That may come later. That may be more to do with kind of advocacy and retention. So you're communicating with your existing customers, and it could be things around, new product developments, case studies, those sorts of things. So I would always recommend content marketing and excelling there. And then linked to that really is LinkedIn. I'm a huge fan of, apart from the DM issue, but there's lots of great account-based marketing activities you can do on LinkedIn. So we're doing lots of campaigns with Delvify now where we'll create a blog or a guide. We'll then boost that post and put a small amount of budget behind it on LinkedIn, but be really focused on who we're targeting, country, industry.
And have you seen that works?
Yeah, it works really well. It's great to measure because we can measure, awareness in terms of views, engagement in terms of kind of clicks, and then the ultimate kind of measure is, how many leads you're generating. But it's been really useful. So, for example, we were targeting retail as an industry, which was burning budget, not delivering anything. So as soon as you strip retail out from your targeting, it becomes more refined and more focused. But yeah, I'm a massive fan of LinkedIn, and also, you can test different formats of your creative, whether it's kind of animated GIFs or short form video. And also we're just working on using the LinkedIn newsletter feature as well, and just thinking, well, does that perform better compared to a standard kind of email-based newsletter? So I think if you've got, small teams, small budgets, I think, content marketing definitely, and LinkedIn, the account-based marketing on there, because it doesn't cost a lot. It's easy to measure, and you can kind of test, learn, and refine as you go through.
So measuring is obviously optimal here. What
Yeah,
would
definitely.
you say, you personally, and your time at Delvify, what has been the thing that has caught your attention the most on LinkedIn? Is it the GIFs? Is it the, I don't know, kind of video marketing? What would it be?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think probably what I really like is, I think World Economic Forum do this really well, where they just have short form video. Not very long, a few minutes, but nice images that grab your attention, and then just some text that kind of talks you through the story. So it's really engaging. It's really easy to kind of read and consume, but then you're more likely to then kind of read the article because it's interesting and it's relevant to you. So I think that those are things I do really like, because it kind of stands out. It grabs your attention.
Like a trailer. Come have a watch.
Yeah, and it's better than kind of, a lot of stuff can be quite dry, quite kind of dull, that you just kind of skip through. And someone's attention span on LinkedIn going through the feed is probably a couple of seconds. But you do need to grab that attention, whether it's a video or a striking image or a striking headline, really.
Absolutely. It's so much information, so much, a huge flow of kind of information coming through on LinkedIn constantly. That is that kind of scroll. So it needs to be that thing that catches your attention. Who to hire first when you're building a marketing team? Who would you hire first? What would you recommend to Delvify or other companies?
Yeah, I think I'd always recommend hiring somebody that you think has the potential to grow into either a head of marketing or a marketing director over time. So find that individual that has got that kind of appetite, curiosity, drive, etc. But then you can kind of work with them, you can mentor them, kind of share your experience, your knowledge, but ultimately then empower them to kind of, so that I can kind of move forwards, delegate and empower, have some metrics in place, but then work with them to help them grow. But then you've probably got a marketing structure, org structure in mind of other roles that you'd like to build out and fill over time. But if you've recruited this person that's got the capability to develop into a head of or director level role over time, you can work with them then to let them recruit the team, to think about, well, what roles are important? If you've got a small budget, what roles do you need to enable that particular marketing person then to step up to the next level, so they can then empower, delegate, and kind of move forwards, really. So that's what I'd always recommend, really, just especially with startups. It's, of course, you want to hire
from someone from the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. And again, with a startup, you can give them equity as well, so they've got some skin in the game. But it's that opportunity for someone to build their own team, but you can kind of help guide and mentor them as well. But making sure that, of course, you want to recruit people with the right technical skills, but you want to recruit the right type of person. Not everybody is suitable for a startup. People that have worked in a large corporate all their life, it's very different environment to, say, a startup environment. So that kind of cultural fit, and someone that is a bit of a go-getter, an entrepreneurial kind of mindset, and can make things happen, roll their sleeves up, and those sorts of things are important as well.
Tell me, you said that, so not everyone is suitable for a startup. What makes someone suitable for a startup?
Yeah, I read this great phrase the other day, actually. It says, I think, in the corporate world, the focus is on covering your butt, whereas a startup, the focus is on kicking butt. I thought that's quite interesting. I think, if you took sales, for example, you could have somebody that's really, really successful in the corporate world. They've done multi-million-dollar deals, etc., and then they want to try startup. But if you take away that corporate company they worked for, were they successful because they were backed by a corporate, the brand and those resources, or was it them themselves as an individual? So I think people for a startup world, you want someone that's hungry, that needs to make it happen, needs to close that deal because they need the money, they need the bonus, or they want to help the company grow because they can see the potential for themselves as well, really. And I think also with a startup, you can't fall back on a legal team or a compliance team or a huge marketing department. A lot of the time, you have to do things yourself.
On your shoulders, isn't it?
You might have to just Google, take a mutual NDA, for example. You might just have to Google it, find one, and kind of use your skills to kind of figure out how to do that. So you do need people that are comfortable to roll their sleeves up and do things that perhaps they're not qualified for, that they don't have experience for. But yeah, they'll give it a go and speak to people and kind of ask questions and have that curiosity, really.
Really interesting point there. So actually, not everyone is born to be in a startup, but is it perhaps something that they could learn?
Good question, I think. Potentially, I think it very much depends on the individual, really. I think if you've worked in the corporate world, you will have a wealth of experience and knowledge that you can kind of draw on. But I think it is that ability, I suppose, to step outside of your comfort zone. If you're reviewing a contract, for example, you're not legally qualified, you don't have a legal team. Are you comfortable doing that yourself and understanding where the key risks are and where to focus, really? So I wouldn't say that no one in corporate can work in startup, but I think it is a very different environment. You don't have any safety nets that you have in the corporate world, whether it's resource, people, money, salary as well. You've got to be prepared to step out of your comfort zone and roll your sleeves up and make it work.
And no, you can do it on yourself. As you said, no safety nets. You can't fall back on anyone. You're there on your own. What about, obviously talking about hiring, what about building the best sales team? How do you build a sales team?
Yeah, I'd say it's similar to the marketing one, actually, where I'd always look to recruit somebody that had that potential to grow into a head of sales or a sales director level, that you can then work with to think about, well, what would be the ultimate kind of, or the optimum sales structure over time? And then how do you then bring in additional resources that complement that particular sales recruit so they can then step up and continue moving forwards. So I always have that in mind. But I think, the best salespeople in my mind are people that are hungry. They will close a deal. They want to make it work. But again, coming back to that LinkedIn aspect, where I wouldn't want to recruit someone that just spams people's inboxes, or whether it's on LinkedIn or whether it's just email. You want someone that, it's more kind of relationship selling, someone that wants to learn about the product, wants to learn about the features, but is comfortable thinking about providing thought leadership or consultative advisory selling. It's those sorts of skills that I think are more important in today's world, really. I think, the old world, if you go back to last century of, I think it was Anthony Rubin, I think was that kind of sales guru. Those kind of cold, hard sales tactics, I think, I don't particularly like them. I don't like working with people like that. So I think it
puts me off as soon as someone starts selling.
Massively.
Think, no.
Yeah, but I also think someone that likes kind of data, likes KPIs, likes measuring. So we use HubSpot a lot, which is a great tool for kind of measuring who's opened, who's read your email, who's clicked through. So someone that will look at data and kind of refine what they're doing. Because it's easy just to think, well, I've got 100 prospects, I'll just email everyone, but it doesn't work. You've got to kind of be looking at things and understand, well, why isn't that working? I'm getting a good open rate, or people answering the phone, but I'm not closing. What's the problem? What aren't I doing? And how do I kind of adjust my activity accordingly?
So it's kind of that mix between someone who can, let's say, read people, understand people, but also that is good at data and able to put this together. Yeah. Very interesting. Hard to find as well sometimes, though, that mix between them both. Okay. Zone4. Okay, so Zone4, the ultimate sweet spot, the place where you get maximum performance. So a quote on your website again. This isn't the theory that you've just read in the book from the beginning. As I said, this is a hard set of tools, battle tools that you've used. What would be the best advice that you could give to people, give to our listeners? How should businesses be more like Zone4? How should they use, your kind of tools? Yeah,
I think really, what I've tried to do here is really just kind of strip things down to the bare bones and think about what's really, really important, what things really drive results. It just reminds me, I was working at Virgin Mobile at the time, and I was doing a marketing degree kind of in my spare time, and I had a mentor. And I sat down with this guy and said, right, I've got to do this kind of assignment. It's a marketing strategy. And you've got to do all of these things, do all of this customer research, excuse me. And he just laughed at me and said, we don't do that. We don't have the time. We don't have the budget. We just do literally kind of 2 pages of this and just get straight to the point. And I always remember that as the example, and that's what I've tried to kind of replicate with Zone4, that, you know, it is those 3 stages really. It's about how do you get to market, how do you get customers, how do you retain them, focusing really simply on that ideal customer profile, the target messages, and those kind of KPIs really. I think in my experience over the last kind of 20 years, I think especially with marketing, you know, you can be super busy. You can have a team that's doing tons and tons of stuff. But when you take a step back and you say to them, well, what exactly are you doing and why? How are you measuring this? What are you hoping to achieve? Often, you know, you don't get the right answers, especially in situations where maybe people are focused on kind of, you know, marketing a product. And you think, well, okay, well, think about the customer. What does your customer look like? And you're just bombarding them with all of these different product messages that don't make sense. So again, come back, put yourself in the customer's shoes, think about your customer. How do you kind of join things up, and how do you kind of start simply, you know, test, learn, refine, and then just kind of build out from there really.
So
I
it's
think
like having that, you know, that laser target where you're going for something and kind of cutting out all the noise on the side of it. You know,
definitely.
You don't need the thing that kind of people fill their time up with work, which maybe 3/4 of it is not necessary.
It is ultimately, you know, what are you hoping to achieve, and are you achieving it? What are those kind of KPIs, and measuring those, and, you know, also not being frightened of failure as well, because, you know, you will fail at things. That's okay, as long as you know what you were trying to do and how you're measuring it, because you learn from that. You can refine things and keep moving forwards, because things won't work first time. It takes time to kind of test, learn, and refine, and, you know, hence doing these things, test, learning, refining, and then you find your kind of sweet spot, the point at which your customer acquisition cost, the ratio with your customer lifetime value is really, really strong, so you can pump more money in it because you've got it to work.
So I guess it comes back to that point where you said about not being afraid to kind of step outside the box, not being afraid to do something differently. If you do that, that's generally when you'll make mistakes. The mistakes aren't bad. That's when you can learn from them. So without that, you can't do that. So it's that circuit again. Okay, so how do the challenges at Delvify differ from all of the other challenges that you've had in the past? Are they relatively similar? Is marketing relatively similar everywhere, or has it started to change now?
Yeah, I think the main thing with Delphi, I think that the biggest challenge has just been the whole kind of COVID pandemic and travel restrictions. You know, we haven't met as a team face to face. You know, we have had to operate in this kind of remote world, just chatting on Slack and Zoom or Teams. So that has been a challenge, because you can't build those kind of relationships that are easier to do face to face. I think we've had to kind of adapt in that respect. But the other side, coming back to the marketing question, really is, you know, Charles Allard, the founder, you know, very clever, talented guy, really great technically. You know, the company and the product is all about, you know, AI, machine learning, deep tech, natural language processing. So it is very, very complex. So it's been really interesting and challenging trying to kind of lift them out of that and come back to thinking about, well, what is your product? Who are the customers? What is it you're doing for them? What the benefits are, and try to kind of talk to customers in a way that they understand. Because as I said, most people, you know, they get AI, probably know a bit about machine learning, but don't know very much. You know, they don't buy AI and machine learning. But what they do buy is, oh, here's a really cool visual search and visually similar recommendations tool that makes my customers find products 5 times faster. That's always the challenge, I think, with kind of technology products.
Has there been any specific challenges for you working with AI now? So working with a company that works with AI, has that changed in the way you work?
Not necessarily, really. I mean, I'm not a data scientist. I don't really understand all of the detail of AI. I kind of get what it can do, but I think that's quite a healthy balance, because you're working with people that are very technically gifted. You've then got the opportunity to kind of challenge, question, and ask those dumb questions like, well, how does it work? What does it do? What are the benefits? Why would AI be better than a manual solution, and those sorts of things? So that's where it's been really kind of interesting, I suppose. And I quite enjoy working with, you know, technology people. who are very clever, because I think my strengths and weaknesses kind of complement them quite well, really.
Absolutely. It comes back to that point where we were saying that, get rid of the noise. So
Yes.
you don't need to know all about it because your position is this. Yeah. They know this, and together again, it creates that company which thrives. So what are the top 3 questions founders should ask themselves when creating a marketing plan at the beginning?
Yeah. Again, I think, it's always good to basically take a step back and start to think about, well, who is this ideal kind of customer that you're trying to sell to? So who's ultimately going to buy your products? But then just ask really, put yourself in their shoes, obviously, and ask 3 kind of simple questions. So the first one always is, well, what problem are you trying to solve? So what problem does that particular customer have? And then how do you kind of solve it? So what is your solution? How does it solve those customer problems? But then think about, well, what's the impact when you've solved those problems? How does it make their life better? So kind of think about it in terms of, problem, solution, impact. And I think that really gives you that kind of clarity of thought then. And sometimes it may mean that actually you need to go back to drawing boards and work a bit harder and refine your solution. Because if you haven't really nailed that kind of problem, solution, impact, it's always really going to be hard to win customers, to start to scale your business. And it does help frame a lot of your sales and marketing activities, really.
So it's really important to, what are you doing? What's the impact you're having? And go back if it's not working, go back and definitely see how. Okay, so for you personally, starting Zone4, working at Delvify, you've obviously said COVID has obviously caused some kind of challenges, obviously, face-to-face. Apart from that, what has been over the last few years, you personally building Zone4, what has been the most challenging part? Obviously, you took the plunge to design and create Zone4. What was the most difficult part of doing it?
Yeah, I think it's basically just that leap into the unknown, I think, where you're giving up, a salary job, where you've got money coming in. So I think it is that kind of fear of failure. Money is always a big thing, and making that leap. But I think my kind of lessons were, I was fortunate enough to have some savings to kind of fall back on, which gave me a bit of breathing space. I was lucky that I had a client, as in Delvify, kind of that I could work with straight away, that gave me a bit of kind of credibility to start off with. But it's one of those things where I've always wanted to kind of work for myself. I've always wanted to do a startup. And I think with COVID, it kind of made you realize that you can work from home. You can now work for any company in the world. So all of a sudden, new opportunities arose. And I thought, well, it is a case of now or never. And to be honest, I'd rather regret things I've done than things that I haven't done. And I just thought, if I don't do it now, I never will do, and I'll always regret it. So I thought, I'll take the plunge and see what happens, really.
And now taking the plunge, now having actually gone over the line and doing something different, obviously working for Virgin and other companies, you are the example where you can actually go into a startup and you can make it thrive as well. What are your plans for the future? What are plans for Z4? Where does this go now?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I only started the company last November. So, it's focusing on the first 12 months, and it is about survival, proving that I can survive the first 12 months, make a living from this, win customers, retain those customers, etc. So, very focused on that first 12 months, really. And I think also really kind of committed to helping Delvify at the moment. It's a great company, some great technology, some great people. So I'm really kind of committed to helping them kind of, accelerate to, profit, securing the Series A funding, and then helping them kind of scale the business and hopefully to a successful financial exit over the next few years. But I think by doing that, it then gives me that kind of street cred really for Zone4, where I can say, well, actually, I've helped this particular company all the way through. So that's what I'm kind of focusing on at the moment, really.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to press the thumbs up button below. Also, subscribe to our channel to make sure you don't miss out on any future content coming your way in the near future. Also, I really want to know your opinion about this episode, so be sure to leave a comment down below in the comment section. Okay guys, that's all for now. See you soon.